New at 11, a major break in a story we first brought you Thursday. Police say a man is now in custody after a woman's body was discovered in Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale police say Altavius Powell is being charged with premeditated murder in this case. At this time, it's unclear what his relationship was with the victim, Daneshia Hela. But Hela's body was found near the intersection of Northwest 15th Avenue near Northwest 2nd Avenue. That is right across the street from North Fork Elementary School. Investigators originally ruling her death as suspicious.
Her family had never heard his name, not once. So how did Daneshia end up dead in a man's apartment that nobody who loved her even knew existed? That's the question, and the answer is worse than you think. If you're new here, Crime Pocket TV covers domestic violence and murder cases that don't get the attention they deserve. Hit subscribe. Every story on this channel is somebody's real life. Her name was Daneshia Hela. Everybody who loved her called her Nene. She was 30 years old, born and raised in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And if you knew her, really knew her, people keep saying the same thing. The moment she walked into a room, she was already reaching out to hug you. That was just who she was. Her mother, Tamikia Connor, owns a beauty salon right there in Fort Lauderdale. Built it herself. Her pride. And Nane grew up watching her mother build something from nothing in that city. Now here's the part that'll sit heavy with you. Nane had 3 daughters, 5, 7, and 8 years old. 3 little girls who needed their mother every single day. And that right there, those babies, are the reason this story hits the way it does. Her father, Davis Hela, loved his daughter deeply. Her aunt, Latoya Snell, was right there with the family every step of the way. This was a tight unit, a family that showed up for each other. So when the news hit them, it didn't just hurt, it shattered them. It was early morning in Fort Lauderdale, the city barely awake, streets still quiet. And sometime before 7:30 that morning, somebody made a call to police. When officers arrived at the 1500 block of Northwest 2nd Street, what they found near a dumpster stopped them cold. A woman, naked, covered with cardboard, left there like she was nothing. Her name was Daneshia Hela. And by the time the sun was fully up that morning, her family's entire world had already fallen apart. Now, let me tell you something. The way she was found was only part of the story. Because after investigators started working the scene, they traced everything back to a nearby apartment. And what was inside that apartment was something else entirely. The family later got hold of video footage from inside that space. And when they watched it, they didn't just see a crime scene. They saw exactly what happened to Nane in her last moments. There was blood, a lot of it, spread across multiple areas of that apartment. And the footage showed, through evidence markers left by investigators, that her body had been dragged, not from one spot, through multiple rooms, deliberately moved through that space before someone carried her outside and left her by that dumpster.
Okay, let me set this up. We're in this beauty salon. This is the salon owned by the victim's mom, okay? And we just spoke with her. This is 30-year-old Daneshia. I want to show you something here. The family has just gotten video from inside of where police say Daneshia was shot to death. And you see a lot of blood there, right?
Yes. Wherever you see the blue is how he drug her through the apartment on the floor. We have 3 videos actually.
So this was
each area in the apartment.
This was a very bloody scene.
She put up a fight.
She put up a fight, and I want to show you these faces here. This is her dad, who's standing next to me. Fort Lauderdale police just had a news conference, and this family here is absolutely heartbroken.
Her aunt Latoya watched that footage and said it straight. She put up a fight, and that matters because Nane did not accept what was being done to her. She pushed back. The blood in that apartment spread the way it was. That is physical proof of who she was, even in the worst moment of her life. She was shot in the head. Her mother, Tamikia, described it as execution style. A mother so wrecked by grief and rage she could barely get the words out. He shoot her in the head, like, what could she have done or said to you that you think that you want to kill and shoot my baby execution style like that? Make it make sense, because this was not a moment of panic. You do not drag a person through multiple rooms, remove their clothing, carry them outside, and then stop to cover them with cardboard, unless you're making decisions one after another, cold ones. That sequence of events says everything about the kind of person who did this. Nanai was 30 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. 3 daughters at home, a mother whose salon was just down the road, a father who loved her to pieces, and she spent her last moments in that apartment fighting for her life. Her aunt said it, and it bears repeating. He didn't have to do that to her. She didn't deserve that. Now here is where this story takes a turn. Fort Lauderdale detectives were working the scene. They had a body. They had a blood-soaked apartment. They had a case that was clearly deliberate, clearly violent. What they needed was a name. And more importantly, a location. The man they were looking for was 34-year-old Altavius Powell. But the way he ended up in handcuffs is not the story you'd expect. He wasn't spotted near the scene. He wasn't pulled over because of Daneshia. What happened is that detectives came across Powell while he was already being picked up on charges that had absolutely nothing to do with her death. Weapon possession by a convicted felon, unrelated, completely separate situation. But hey, sometimes the law catches you one way when it really needed to catch you for something else entirely. And while he was in custody for that, investigators started working the connection. They dug in, they followed the evidence. And then the DNA results came back. Altavius Powell's DNA was found inside that apartment, the same apartment where Daneshia Hela was killed and dragged across the floor. That is not a coincidence. That is a case. And at that point, it locked in around him. But then something else came out, something that nobody was ready for. According to the arrest warrant, Powell had told the mother of his child, the woman who shares a child with him, that he had killed 2 women. 2, not 1, 2, like, you commit a murder, you dispose of a body, and then you go and tell somebody, not just that, you tell them there was another one. Moving on, because the police took that statement seriously. They investigated it. They looked into every angle of that claim, and their conclusion was clear. There was no evidence of a second victim, no body, no missing persons case that connected, nothing. As far as Fort Lauderdale police were concerned, Altavius Powell was responsible for 1 homicide, Daneshia Hela's, and 1 homicide only. But that statement, I killed 2 women, was already out in the world. And once something like that gets out, you cannot pull it back. Oh, so now, social media had a field day. Posts started spreading across Broward County overnight. People were claiming there was a serial killer loose in Fort Lauderdale. Fake vehicle descriptions were circulating, claims of multiple bodies, people tagging locations, families genuinely afraid, and calling police, checking on their loved ones, panicking in the comments over something that had no verified foundation. And right in the middle of all of that noise, Nanai's family was still sitting in that salon, still trying to breathe, still trying to figure out how to tell 3 little girls, 5, 7, and 8 years old, that their mother was not coming home, while the internet was turning their daughter's death into a theory. This family was trying to grieve. Every new wave of misinformation ripped that wound open again. That part is not okay. That part deserves to be said plainly. Fort Lauderdale police had seen enough. They held a press conference specifically to shut it down. And they said it straight.
Detectives through investigative means were able to track down and verify that Powell was our suspect in this case. He was subsequently arrested and charged, and DNA came back to him being at the crime scene, and he's been charged with first-degree murder. I know there's some stuff circulating on social media, so we're here to dispel any rumors or concerns. I'll start off by saying we do not have a serial killer that we're looking at in the city of Fort Lauderdale. As far as we know, Altavius Powell's only committed one homicide, is the one we're referencing right now. I think the family's still trying to heal, and then when they see, we've had them reach out to us for things that they've seen on social media, thinking now that, they have other family members that live in the area. Is there a concern for them? And even though we vetted that the suspect is in custody, it hasn't stopped the trail of social media from continuing to grow.
Anyways, the damage was already done. A grieving family had to watch strangers turn their daughter's murder into content, into speculation, into entertainment, while they were barely holding themselves together. And that right there is its own kind of harm. Altavius Powell was charged with first-degree premeditated murder, firearm enhancement included. He was taken into custody and held without bond, meaning he sat in that cell while the case built around him, and he was not going anywhere. The evidence against him was already significant. The DNA placed him at the scene. His own words, told to his child's mother, put him at the center of it. And the physical condition of that apartment told a story that was very hard to argue with. The motive, at the time of this story, was still listed as under investigation. The family had said clearly they did not know this man. They could not connect him to Nane's life in any way that made sense to them. So the question of why still had no clean public answer. And that gap, not knowing exactly why, is one of the hardest things for a family to carry, because people need a reason. They need to understand how their person ended up somewhere that cost them everything. And when that reason hasn't been officially given, the mind just fills that space with questions that have no easy answers. What we know is this. Altavius Powell walked into that apartment with Daneshia Hela, and only one of them walked out. Crime Pocket TV, we cover the cases that matter. If you've been watching this far, you already know this channel is different. Subscribe. Share this video, because Nane's story deserves to reach every corner of the internet, and not just the parts that run on rumors. Her father, Davis Hela, did something after he got the news that a lot of people do when the grief is too big to hold inside. He went to Facebook, not to perform, not for attention, just because that was the only space that felt big enough to hold what he was feeling. He wrote about his pain without dressing it up. He used her full name. He put her dates, August 15th, 1995 to February 18th, 2026, like he was planting a marker for the world to see. Like he was saying, this person existed, this person mattered. And he ended it the only way a father who just lost his child could. My baby, Nane, Daddy will always forever love you and ride to the end for you. That is a father. That is what love looks like when it has nowhere left to go except out into the world in words. And her aunt said it simply, "Baby, we love you. And even though you're not here with us in body, you're always going to be with us in spirit. I love you so much." Because at the end of all of this, after the crime scene, after the DNA, after the arrest, after the social media chaos, what you are left with is a family in a beauty salon in Fort Lauderdale trying to figure out how to keep going. Tamikia Connor built that salon with her own hands. It was her pride, her place. And that week, instead of the usual noise of a working salon, the laughter, the conversations, the everyday life of that space, her family gathered there in grief. That salon became a place of mourning. No mother should ever have to experience that. Now here is what stays with me about this whole story. The family said they did not know this man. could not connect him to Nane's life in any way that made sense to them. And yet, she ended up dead in his apartment, dragged across the floor, left outside like she was disposable. The why has not been answered publicly, and sometimes that is the part that never fully heals, because you can get an arrest, you can get a charge, you can get a conviction, and still be left sitting with a question that the courtroom never fully answers. What we do know is that Daneshia Hela was a woman who fought. Even when it cost her everything, she did not go quietly. The blood in that apartment proved it. Her aunt said it, and this channel is saying it now, and that matters. 3 little girls, 5, 7, and 8 years old, are growing up without their mother. They are going to have questions one day about who she was, what she laughed like, why she is not there. And the people who love Nane are going to have to answer those questions while still carrying their own grief at the same time. So let's be clear about what this case also showed us. The moment those details hit the internet, a woman found near a dumpster, a suspect who allegedly said he killed 2 people. People ran with it, posted it, shared it, added to it, and none of them stopped to think about what that noise was doing to a family already living in the worst week of their lives. Check what you share. Verify before you post. Because behind every headline is a real family, and they are watching everything you put out there. Her name was Daneshia Hela. She was Nane. She was a mother, a daughter, a woman with energy that filled every room she walked into. And the people who loved her are not going to let the world forget. If this story moved, you share it. That is how Nane's name keeps traveling. Subscribe to Crime Pocket TV for cases like this one. Real people, real families, real stories that deserve to be told right. We'll see you on the next one.